people have spent a lot of man-hours digging out from all of the snow we've received. In cities like Boston, those who dig out their cars leave behind space savers for their parking spots. But Mayor Walsh wants those savers gone. And our Caitlin Flint joins us live from the neighborhood famous for its space savers, and that's South Boston, Caitlin.
You know, Latoya, it is a common sight across the city in residential neighborhoods, especially here in South Boston. You look down the street and what you see is a mix of giant snowbanks and parking spot savers. Well, starting next week, one of those two things will be disappearing much more quickly than the other. Barrels to the classic cones. They are some of the most valuable items on city streets in Boston right now. But starting Monday, these parking spot savers will become trash.
It wasn't a minor storm. It was a big time storm, and I think they should be rewarded with their parking spot.
Boston Mayor Marty Walsh has announced that the Public Works Department will begin removing space savers next week as part of regular neighborhood trash removal, an announcement that has many in South Boston sounding off.
I think the mayor's office needs to reassess that, considering the amount of snow we've had.
A lot of people are out here days, hours, nights.
It's one neighborhood where residents say parking is bad enough without adding close to 8 feet of snow on top of it. Digging out from underneath it all has many feeling a strong sense of ownership for their spots, causing what some may call a parking battleground.
I do see some notes with some warnings, but a little comical stuff too.
Many spots across the city are being topped off with notes, some pleading for consideration, others engaging in an ongoing turf war, and there are those offering a word of caution.
I did see one saying, "I will slash tires if you remove this spot."
All examples of just how serious space savers and those that put them there are. But come next week, the battle will become a different one as drivers stop defending spots and instead begin a city scavenger hunt trying to find one.
There's nothing we can do. It's really a disaster zone.
So a lot of people do say they understand why this has to happen. It just really doesn't help soften the blow at all. But it is important to make note that these spot savers really have been out for much longer than they typically are allowed to be, which is about 48 hours after a storm. Now, the mayor is asking people to respect their neighbors and their neighbors' property as the process moves forward. We're live in South Boston tonight. Caitlin Flint, NECN.
Another thing to think about with all the snow is roof collapses. Our Jackie Bruno was live in Hingham, Massachusetts, where that community is still trying to clean up after one. Jackie?
Yeah, if you take a look behind me, Latoya, you can see that this area of South Street is actually closed off because an historic building back there actually had a roof collapse earlier this week. And that's really the real reality of all this snow that we have already piled up on roofs. And we found people all across the South Shore trying to prevent something like this from happening, trying to get roof rakes to take the snow off their homes. The problem is those are hard to find.
The answering machine says, if you're calling about roof rakes, we don't have any.
That's what you'll hear if you call Ace Hardware in Hanson, Massachusetts. They can't keep them in stock.
We had 100 roof rakes, and they went in about an hour and a half. We had 60 of the roof pellets come in, and those went in about an hour.
Tim Leonard has been searching high and low for a roof rake since Tuesday, and without any luck, he's resorting to making his own.
I went online, and you could see people were doing it there, and they were using PVC, and then you just put a piece of plywood on the end of it.
Down the street, Newcomb's Tree Service learned the hard way. Their roof collapsed overnight.
Thank God there was nobody in there.
But they did use the building for storage.
There's a backhoe in there, there's a race car in there. We've been storing just a lot of different things in there. So unfortunately, yeah, it looks like that it's a loss.
Meanwhile, over in Hingham, Massachusetts, the Fresh Market grocery store had to be evacuated Friday afternoon because of a compromised roof. They can't reopen until they get the okay from an engineer and the building inspector.
So the best advice with this blizzard coming this weekend really is if you have a roof rake already and you do have some snow on your roof, try to get out there tomorrow morning and try to take as much off before more piles on there, because roofs being compromised or even collapsing is a real reality, as I said, with all this snow. We're live in Hingham, Massachusetts. Jackie Bruno, NECN. Other parts of Cape Cod battered blizzard-like conditions as well. Our John Maroney has that story from Hyannis.
Downtown Hyannis, Massachusetts, nearly a ghost town. Snow and blizzard-like conditions making it tough for people to even stay on their feet.
I'm wearing 4 layers, walking down the road, and the wind blows and I go with it.
Very bad condition. It's very wind, and I hope it's like everybody stay home if you don't have not go outside.
The storm didn't really ramp up around Hyannis Harbor until the break of day, but once it started, conditions went from bad to worse almost immediately.
You have to watch yourself. You know what I mean? You got to look constantly behind you and in front of you to make sure nobody runs into you.
A good thing it seems like there's not a lot of people out anyways.
No, just crazy people like us.
At Commerce Park Beach, an eerie silence with the water nearly still despite the strong winds. It's been a tough winter here on the Cape, known better for its warm summer months.
It's been probably one of the worst winters that I can remember. I've lived here my whole life, and it's been pretty bad. Lots of snow, cold.
Well, it doesn't bother me much. I grew up in this kind of stuff. I lived out the other side of Worcester. So this is a regular, normal winter snowstorm, except people up there know how to plow the roads.
The wind's still whipping around Hyannis Harbor. It's expected to stay this way through much of the day, even as the storm starts to wind down. In Hyannis, Massachusetts, John Maroney, NECN.
Now it's an annual sign of spring, and boy, do we need it this year. Boston Flower and Garden Show kicks off tomorrow at the Seaport World Trade Center. Guess who got to go? NECN's Nelly Carreño showing us what to expect.
Spring officially starts in about 10 days, and after the rough and cold winter that we've had, New Englanders are ready for it. And that's why I'm here at the Boston Flower and Garden Show at the Seaport World Trade Center, where they're putting the final touches on hundreds of beautiful exhibits before they open the doors tomorrow. This year's theme is Season of Enchantment, and it features beautiful and colorful gardens that look like they came straight out of a fairy tale. But there's a lot more to the show.
We have hundreds of floral arrangements here to enjoy, but it's also a landscape show. It's a chance to talk to landscapers, to get inspired by landscapes, to see new plants, to see new ideas in furnishings and home decor.
You can get ideas for a new water fountain or even learn about sand sculpting. There are dozens of unique lectures and demonstrations.
One's about diagnosing your veggie plant problems. One is about hardscape and how you work with all these stones to make them come together into an outdoor room for your own home.
The show runs from Wednesday, March 11th through Sunday, March 15th. From the Boston Flower and Garden Show at the Seaport World Trade Center, I'm Nelly Carreño for NECN.
It is going to be a painful trial for some marathon bombing victims who are preparing themselves tonight.
And some we spoke with are anxious, but they're also ready for the difficult testimony to come. Josh Brogadier joins us live in Boston right now with that part of the story. Josh.
Well, Latoya, Steve, the survivors, the families of these victims, for them, this will be reliving the bombing and the days thereafter. Nothing about these next few months will be easy.
I want him to see us. I want him to know we're there.
On the eve of the terror trial for accused Boston Marathon bombing suspect Jahar Tsarnaev, one of his alleged victims that day, Karen Broussard, who sustained extreme damage to her legs, is anxious about the day and months to come.
I don't know what I'm going to feel, you know. I mean, right now I feel like I'm on the verge of tears, and I haven't been like that for so long, so it's odd to me to have this emotion come up. But I'm excited that it's getting started because I think we all need it to be done, but I'm also nervous about it.
She and her husband Ron were side by side on April 15, 2013, cheering on friends near the finish line. Karen lives in New Hampshire, but intends to be in Boston for as much of the trial as she can. Ron does not. She says the jury selection process was excruciatingly slow, made even longer by the weather, but she is glad repeated attempts by the defense to change the venue were denied.
I believe that people will do what's right based on what's presented. You know, I really do. And I know that there's a lot of anger and a lot of, fear here, but I think there's a lot of anger and fear everywhere.
The trial is expected to last 4 months, and if the jurors convict, will decide between the death penalty or life in prison for the accused. Karen went back and forth on the issue, but now says death instead of life.
I have come to the conclusion that I think it is fair. He is still getting visits from his sisters, and he gets to hear about his nieces or nephews or family members growing up or getting old or going through things that the Richards don't get, the Campbells don't get. Lindsay Lou's family doesn't have that joy in their life anymore, and I just don't think it's fair that he should have joy.
And Karen says she has not been asked to testify in this trial. and some of her friends have, though. And so for them, it's going to be a different experience, of course, up on that stand. Opening statements, again, begin tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. We're live in Boston tonight. Josh Brigadier, NECN.